Imagine standing in a room full of Navy SEALs who think you're nobody. They laugh when you walk in. One mocks you out loud, asking what your rank is, like it's the funniest joke he's ever told. You don't respond. You just stand there, silent, watching the mission unfold on the screens above. Then the room goes quiet. 4 high-ranking generals walk through the blast doors, and every single person snaps to attention. But the generals don't stop at the officers. They walk straight to you and salute. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of quiet power and unexpected respect, feel free to subscribe. What happens next will change everything you thought you knew. Sub-Level 4 of the United States Strategic Command Facility in Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, exists in a state of controlled chaos at all hours. At 0547 on a Tuesday morning, the Tactical Operations Center hums with the kind of energy that only comes when lives hang in the balance. 72 personnel occupy the space, their faces lit by the glow of wall-sized digital screens displaying real-time intelligence from halfway across the world. Satellite feeds flicker with thermal imagery. Drone cameras sweep over desert compounds. Heartbeat monitors track the vital signs of operators moving through hostile territory in Djibouti. The air smells like burnt coffee, gear oil, and the particular kind of sweat that comes from high-stakes decision-making. The room is a cathedral of modern warfare, all hard angles and steel surfaces. Massive blast doors guard the entrance. Rows of workstations curve in semicircles around a central command platform. Officers in crisp uniforms move between stations, murmuring updates, checking data streams, coordinating assets across 3 continents. On the main screen, 8 American operators are closing in on a compound where hostages have been held for 17 days. Every person in this room knows that the next 15 minutes will determine whether those hostages come home alive or in boxes. Into this precise machinery of military power walks a young woman who looks like she wandered in from a coffee shop. She cannot be older than 25. She wears a faded canvas jacket over a black turtleneck. Both civilian, both unremarkable. No insignia adorns her clothing. No badge hangs from her neck. Her dark hair is pulled back in a simple knot that suggests function over fashion. She carries only 2 items: a weathered leather portfolio that has seen better days and a stainless steel thermos that could have come from any grocery store in America. She does not hesitate at the entrance. She does not ask permission or check in with security. She simply walks through the space as if she has every right to be there, her steps quiet but purposeful. She moves past rows of analysts who do not look up from their screens, past junior officers who do not acknowledge her presence, past communication specialists who do not register her existence. She climbs the steps to the observation deck, a raised platform where senior officers typically stand to oversee operations. The platform offers an unobstructed view of every screen, every workstation, every piece of intelligence flowing through the center. She stands there, perfectly still, eyes forward, watching. The whispers start within seconds. In a room full of people trained to notice details, her presence is an anomaly that cannot be ignored. A junior analyst leans toward his supervisor, voice barely above a murmur. "Who is that?" The supervisor shrugs without taking his eyes off his screen. "Someone from contracting, maybe." Another voice chimes in from a nearby station. "She is not on the clearance roster." I checked. A communications officer glances up, frowns, then returns to her work. Probably State Department. They send observers sometimes. The whispers spread like ripples across water. Is she a contractor? An analyst? Someone's intern who got lost on the way to a different briefing? Nobody knows. Nobody has seen her before. In a facility where everyone knows everyone, where security clearances are checked and double-checked, where unauthorized personnel would be removed within minutes, her presence makes no sense. Yet nobody moves to question her. Nobody asks her to leave. She simply stands there on the observation deck, holding her thermos, watching the screens with an intensity that suggests she understands exactly what she is seeing. Lieutenant Commander Garrick Thorne notices her after about 3 minutes. Thorne is a Navy SEAL, late 30s, with the kind of build that comes from a lifetime of brutal physical training. His uniform displays ribbons from deployments in 6 different countries. His jaw is sharp, his posture perfect, his confidence absolute. He stands near the center of the operations floor with 3 members of his team, men who have run missions in conditions most people cannot imagine. They are waiting for the Djibouti operation to conclude before their own briefing begins. They are bored, restless, and looking for distraction. Thorn sees the young woman on the observation deck and smirks. He nudges the operator next to him, a stocky man named Royce, and tilts his head toward her. Royce follows his gaze and grins. They exchange a look that says everything without words. This ought to be good. Thorn raises his voice just enough to carry across the operations floor, loud enough that people turn their heads, loud enough that the woman cannot possibly miss it. "Hey, sweetheart, you lost? HR is on the 3rd floor. A few people chuckle, some look uncomfortable. Others glance at the woman to see how she will react. She does not turn, she does not flinch. Her eyes remain locked on the main screen, where the 8 operators are now less than 50 meters from the target compound. Her expression does not change. She simply takes a slow sip from her thermos, caps it carefully, and continues watching. The lack of reaction emboldens Thorn. He is used to getting responses, used to being the center of attention in any room he occupies. Her silence feels like a challenge. He steps forward slightly, voice louder now, playing to the small audience that has formed around him. "No. Seriously. What is your rank? GS7? GS9? You even have a security clearance for this room?" More laughter this time, bolder, less restrained. A captain near the door shakes his head, but says nothing. A colonel across the room frowns, but does not intervene. The woman remains motionless, as if Thorn's words are nothing more than background noise, irrelevant to the task at hand. Her stillness is unnerving. It is the kind of calm that suggests either complete obliviousness or absolute certainty. The joke hangs in the air like smoke. Thorn grins, satisfied. Royce claps him on the shoulder. The moment seems to stretch, suspended in the hum of electronics and the low murmur of ongoing operations. Then everything changes. A voice crackles through the overhead communications system. It is calm, precise, and unmistakably female. "Vanguard 1, this is Cypher. Hold position. Do not breach. Repeat, do not breach." The entire room freezes. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Heads snap toward the speakers embedded in the ceiling. On the main screen, the lead operator, a man whose call sign is Vanguard 1, stops in his tracks just meters from the compound wall. His voice comes through the system, tense and questioning. "Cypher, Vanguard 1. We have positive ID on hostages. Thermal shows 3 tangos, ground floor, unaware. We are green to breach." The voice responds immediately, and this time, everyone in the operations center realizes where it is coming from. It is coming from the woman on the observation deck. She has not moved. She has not raised a radio. She is simply speaking, and somehow her voice is being transmitted directly to the operators 5,000 miles away. "Negative, Vanguard 1. Your thermal is reading residual heat from a diesel generator that shut down 6 minutes ago. There are 11 hostiles, not 3. 4 are positioned on the 2nd floor, with overlapping fields of fire covering the breach point. If you go through that door right now, you lose half your team in the first 30 seconds. Dead silence descends over the operations center. Vanguard 1's voice comes back after a long pause, confusion bleeding through his professional composure. "Cypher, how do you know that? Our thermal imaging is real time. We are not seeing 11 signatures." The woman's voice remains steady, almost gentle, as if she is explaining something obvious to a student who has missed a simple detail. "Your equipment is giving you accurate data based on heat signatures, but heat signatures can lie. The generator creates thermal bloom that masks body heat in adjacent rooms. Trust me on this. Reposition to the southeast corner of the compound. There is a blind spot in their patrol pattern. You have a 60-second window that opens in 20 seconds. Move on my mark and you walk out of there with everyone alive." Vanguard 1 does not respond immediately. The silence stretches. In the operations center, every eye has turned to the woman. Thorn's smirk has vanished completely. His face has gone pale. Colonel Brennick, the operations commander, stares at the observation deck with an expression caught between shock and awe. The junior analysts have stopped pretending to work. They are watching, mouths slightly open, as this unidentified woman in civilian clothes contradicts real-time intelligence and issues direct orders to a SEAL team in active operation. Vanguard 1's voice returns, quieter now, the doubt still present but tempered by something else. Something like trust. Copy, cipher. Moving to southeast corner, awaiting your mark. The woman pulls a slim tablet from her portfolio. She does not rush, she does not fumble. Her movements are economical, practiced. The actions of someone who has done this 1,000 times before. She studies the screen for a moment, her eyes tracking data that nobody else in the room can see. Then she begins counting down, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying clearly through the communication system. 15 seconds. Get into position. 10 seconds. Weapons hot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. On the main screen, the 8 operators move like shadows. They flow around the corner of the compound, stack up against a different wall, and breach through a window nobody had identified as an entry point. The feeds switch to helmet cameras. Muzzle flashes strobe in the darkness. Voices shout commands in clipped professional tones. The action unfolds with brutal efficiency. 30 seconds. 12 confirmed hostiles down. Not 11. 12. The woman's count was off by 1, but she was closer than the $1 million thermal imaging equipment that said there were only 3. Vanguard 1's voice comes through again, breathing hard but steady. All hostiles neutralized. Hostages secure. 0 friendly casualties. The pause that follows is heavy with unspoken questions. Cipher? How in the name of God did you know? The woman does not answer. She closes her tablet, slips it back into her portfolio, and caps her thermos with the same careful precision she has shown since entering the room. Then she turns and walks toward the exit. Her footsteps echo in the silence. Nobody speaks. Nobody moves. It is as if the entire operations center has been holding its breath and forgotten how to exhale. Colonel Brennick finds his voice as she reaches the base of the stairs leading down from the observation deck. Ma'am, wait. She pauses. She does not turn around. Her hand rests on the railing, her posture relaxed, but not casual. Brennick takes a few steps toward her, then stops, seemingly uncertain of how to proceed. He is a full colonel with 26 years of service. He has commanded operations across 4 continents. He has briefed generals and senators. But right now, he looks like a junior officer trying to figure out how to address someone whose rank he cannot identify. Who do I thank for that? The woman's response is quiet, almost sad. You don't. She continues down the stairs and walks toward the blast doors. They hiss open automatically as she approaches. The sound breaks the spell that has held the room frozen. As soon as she disappears through the doors and they seal shut behind her, the operations center erupts in whispers. The volume rises quickly, voices overlapping in confusion and speculation. Who was that? Did she just override a SEAL team commander in active operation? How did she see 11 tangos when our systems showed 3? Where did she come from? Why was she even in this room? Thorne stands motionless in the middle of the floor. His teammates are talking around him, but he does not hear them. His face has gone from pale to flushed, embarrassment and shock warring for dominance in his expression. Royce leans in close, voice low but audible to anyone nearby. Dude, you told her to go to HR. Thorne's jaw clenches. He does not respond. He cannot respond. He is replaying the last 10 minutes in his head, hearing his own voice making jokes, seeing the woman's complete lack of reaction, understanding for the first time that her silence was not weakness or confusion. It was control. It was someone who had absolutely no need to defend herself against insults from people who did not matter. Across the room, a junior analyst named Peterson is frantically typing at his workstation. His supervisor, Chief Warrant Officer Maloney, stands behind him, watching over his shoulder. Peterson pulls up the security access logs for the operations center, searching for the entry that would correspond to the woman's arrival. He finds it within seconds and his face goes pale. He turns to Maloney, voice shaking slightly. Sir, her entry credential. It is showing Omega-9 clearance, Cipher Protocol authorization. Maloney frowns. What is Cipher Protocol? Peterson's hands hover over his keyboard. He tries running a search through the classification database. The system returns an error message. Classification level not found in accessible records. He tries again with different search parameters. Same result. He looks up at Maloney with an expression of genuine fear. Sir, I do not know. That classification does not exist in our system. I have never seen an Omega level clearance before. I did not know Omega even existed. Maloney stares at the screen. He has been in military intelligence for 19 years. He has held top secret clearances. He has worked in black programs that do not officially exist. He has seen classification levels that most people will never know about. But this is new. This is something beyond his access, beyond his understanding, beyond the structure of authority he thought he knew. Who was she? Peterson does not answer because he has no answer to give. Nobody in that room does. The woman walked in, saved 8 lives, and prevented a catastrophic mission failure, and walked out without giving her name, her rank, or any explanation of how she knew things that should have been impossible to know. She was there, and then she was gone, leaving behind only questions and the uncomfortable realization that there are levels of power and authority in the American military that operate completely outside normal channels. Hours later, in a darkened office deep within the Pentagon, a classified file slides across a polished mahogany desk. The folder is thin, barely 20 pages, but the stamps covering its manila surface tell a story of extreme sensitivity. Classified Omega 9. Cipher Protocol, Eyes Only. The hand that opens the folder belongs to General Victor Ibarra, a 2-star who has spent the last decade overseeing some of the most sensitive intelligence operations in the United States military. He has clearance to know things that would never appear in newspapers, things that presidents are briefed on only when absolutely necessary. Inside the folder is a single photograph. It shows the woman from the operations center, captured from a distance by what appears to be surveillance equipment. The image is grainy, slightly blurred, as if she was photographed without her knowledge. Clipped to the photograph is a handwritten intelligence summary on plain paper with no official letterhead. Cipher 7. Active since 2019. Operations conducted 41. Confirmed lives saved 2,300 plus. Mission failure rate 0%. Identity classification above POTUS clearance. Ibarra studies the photograph for a long moment. Across the desk from him sits Director Eamon Sorrell, a man in his late 50s with silver hair and the kind of face that reveals nothing. Sorrell does not wear a uniform. His suit is expensive but unremarkable. He carries no identification. If you passed him on the street, you would never remember him. That is exactly the point. The SEAL who made the joke. Thorne. He is asking questions. Sorrell's expression does not change. Let him ask. He will not find answers. And if he keeps digging, Sorrell leans back in his chair, fingers steepled in front of him. Then maybe it is time he learned what real power looks like. Ibarra closes the folder and slides it back across the desk. Outside the office, the Pentagon continues its daily operations. Thousands of people move through its corridors, making decisions, issuing orders, coordinating the vast machinery of American military power. None of them know that in a small office on a restricted floor, 2 men are discussing someone who does not officially exist, someone whose clearance level is above that of the commander-in-chief, someone who has saved more lives than entire battalions without ever receiving recognition or thanks. Her name is Rena Daleth, but to the people she has saved, to the operators whose lives she has preserved, to the hostages she has brought home, she is only ever a voice, a call sign, a ghost. And ghosts do not leave fingerprints. They do not appear in databases. They do not have ranks or ribbons or official commendations. They simply exist in the spaces between what is known and what is classified, doing the work that keeps the world turning while remaining forever invisible. In the operations center at Offutt Air Force Base, the analysts have returned to their work. The screens continue to glow with intelligence from around the world. New crises are already developing, new decisions waiting to be made. But in the corner of the room, near the observation deck where she stood, there is a coffee stain on the floor. It is small, barely noticeable, the kind of mark that a cleaning crew might miss. It is from her thermos, a single drop that fell when she took her final sip before leaving. It is the only evidence she was ever there. Have you ever met someone who changed everything without saying a word? Someone whose presence shifted the entire room, but who never asked for credit? If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more stories about the people who work in silence. And tell us in the comments, have you ever witnessed quiet power that nobody else recognized? 48 hours after the Djibouti operation, Lieutenant Commander Garrick Thorne sits in a windowless room deep within the Pentagon. The space is a EAT-SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility designed to prevent any form of electronic surveillance. The walls are lined with acoustic dampening material that absorbs sound so completely that even breathing seems muted. The door is reinforced steel with electromagnetic locks that engage with a heavy thunk when sealed. Even cell phones are forbidden within 50 feet of this room. The air circulation system hums at a frequency designed to mask conversation from any theoretical listening device. This is a room where secrets come to live and die. Thorne sits at a bare metal table with 3 members of his team, all of them summoned here, with no explanation beyond a terse message that appeared on their secure communication devices at 0600 this morning. Report to Pentagon, SCIF-7, immediately. Bring no materials. Discuss with no one. The message was signed with a code that indicated the order came from so high up the chain of command that questioning it would be pointless. They have been waiting for 23 minutes. Nobody speaks. The silence is heavy, oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of air circulation and the occasional creak of a chair as someone shifts position. Royce, a stocky SEAL with arms like tree trunks, shifts in his seat and glances at the door. Martinez, their team medic who has stitched up wounds in 3 different combat zones, drums his fingers once on the table, then stops when Thorne gives him a look. Chen, their communication specialist who can hack into most systems given enough time and coffee, stares at the wall with the blank expression of someone trying not to think about why they might be here. The silence stretches. Thorne finds himself thinking about the woman from the operations center. He has thought about her constantly for 2 days, her calm voice, her absolute certainty. The way she stood on that observation deck like she owned the room, despite looking like someone who had wandered in by mistake. The way every person in that operations center turned to watch her after she spoke. The way she saved 8 lives and then walked away without waiting for thanks. The door opens without warning. General Victor Ibarra enters alone, carrying a single folder. He does not offer pleasantries. He does not sit down. He does not waste time with small talk or military courtesy. He simply stands at the head of the table and fixes them with a look that has made colonels reconsider their career choices. Ibarra is a 2-star general who has spent the last decade in the shadowy world of military intelligence. His uniform displays ribbons from conflicts most people do not know happened. His eyes are sharp, assessing, missing nothing. Gentlemen, what I'm about to tell you is classified above your current security clearance. Under normal circumstances, you would never be read into this program, but you have already been exposed, so we are doing damage control. He drops the folder on the table. It lands with a soft thud that seems louder than it should in the sound-dampened room. The folder is thin, but covered in classification stamps that Thorne has never seen before. Omega 9. Cipher Protocol. Eyes only. No foreign nationals. No congressional oversight. The last stamp catches his attention. No congressional oversight means this program exists outside the normal checks and balances that govern military operations. Thorne feels his stomach tighten. Whatever this is, it exists in a space beyond normal military operations. Beyond the chain of command he has spent 15 years learning to navigate. This is black budget territory. This is the kind of program that does not appear in official documents, that has no paper trail, that technically does not exist. Ibarra opens the folder and slides a single sheet of paper toward them. It is almost entirely redacted, black bars covering everything except a handful of words. Cipher Protocol, Strategic Intelligence Asset, Active Operations, Highest Level Clearance. The rest is hidden beneath thick black lines that reveal nothing. The voice you heard on communications 2 days ago during the Djibouti extraction. That operator does not exist. No name, no rank, no personnel file. Legally speaking, she was never in that operations center. She was never on that communication channel. She never issued orders to your team. The mission proceeded according to standard protocols based on real-time intelligence gathered through normal channels. Thorne cannot stay silent. The words come out before he can stop them. Sir, with all due respect, we all saw her. There were 70 people in that room. She was standing on the observation deck. She spoke directly to our team leader. She saved their lives. Ibarra's gaze could cut steel. His voice remains level, but there is an edge to it now, a warning. What you saw, Commander, was a logistics consultant observing standard operating protocol. She was there to evaluate communication efficiency. That is the official record. That is what you will report if anyone asks. That is what you will remember. Are we absolutely clear? The four SEALs exchange glances. This is not a briefing. This is a warning. This is someone in power telling them to forget what they saw, to accept a version of reality that contradicts their own experience. Chen opens his mouth as if to ask a question, then closes it when he catches Ibarra's expression. Martinez looks down at his hands, jaw tight. Royce's face has gone carefully blank, the expression of a soldier who has learned when to stop asking questions. Thorne feels anger rising in his chest, hot and uncomfortable, mixing with confusion and something else he cannot quite name. Shame, perhaps. The memory of his own voice making jokes about HR, about her rank, about her presence in that room. The memory of her standing perfectly still, not defending herself, not responding, simply doing her job while he made an ass of himself. Who is she? The question comes out quieter than he intended. Ibarra's expression does not change, but something flickers in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or caution, or both. Someone who has saved more American lives than your entire unit combined. Someone who operates at a level you are not cleared to know about. Someone who does work that cannot be acknowledged or recognized. Someone you will never speak of again, outside of official debriefings conducted in facilities like this one. He turns to leave, then pauses at the door. The folder remains on the table, deliberately left behind. Ibarra looks back at them, his voice slightly softer, but no less authoritative. Commander Thorne, a word of advice from someone who has been doing this longer than you have been alive. Drop this. For your own good. For her good. There are things in this world that work better when they remain in shadow. She is one of them. The moment light hits her, she stops being effective. And if she stops being effective, people die. Good people, Americans. Think about that before you decide to dig deeper. The door closes behind him with a heavy metallic click that echoes in the small room. The electromagnetic locks engage with a sound like a prison cell sealing. The four men sit in silence. 30 seconds pass. A minute. The air feels thick, hard to breathe. Finally, Royce speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. What the hell just happened? Thorne does not answer. His eyes are fixed on the folder Ibarra left behind. It sits in the center of the table like a test, like a trap, like an invitation and a warning all at once. His hand hesitates over it for a moment. He knows he should not touch it. He knows looking inside will only raise more questions. He knows Ibarra left it deliberately, knowing they would look, knowing they would not be able to resist. He opens it fully. Inside is a surveillance photograph of the woman from the operations center. The image is taken from a distance, slightly grainy, as if captured by equipment that was not meant to be seen. She is walking across what appears to be a parking structure, alone, carrying the same leather portfolio. The angle suggests the photographer was positioned above her, looking down. She does not know she is being watched. Her face is partially turned away from the camera, but it is unmistakably her. Same posture, same quiet intensity, even in a simple photograph. Clipped to the photograph is a handwritten intelligence summary on plain white paper with no official markings, no letterhead, no indication of what agency produced it. The handwriting is precise, almost mechanical, the work of someone trained to convey maximum information in minimum space. Cipher 7. Active operations, 41. Confirmed KIA prevented, 2,300 plus. Mission failure rate, 0.0%. Identity. Classified above POTUS clearance. Current status, active. Cover status, maintained. Threat level to asset if exposed, critical. Below that, a list of operations. Most are redacted completely, entire lines blacked out. A few show partial information, just enough to understand the scale. Syria, 2019. Black site extraction, 47 personnel saved, impossible odds. 0 casualties. Yemen, 2020. Hostage recovery, 12 saved, local assets preserved. Afghanistan, 2021. Kabul airport evacuation, 230 plus. Civilians extracted during final hours. Djibouti, 2024. SEAL team preservation, 8 saved, prevented ambush. The numbers climb into the thousands. Each one represents lives that would have been lost without her intervention. Each one is a family that still has a father, a mother, a son, a daughter. Each one is a mission that succeeded instead of failed. Each one is a crisis averted, a disaster prevented, a tragedy that never happened because she saw what nobody else saw. Martinez leans over to read the page. His eyes widen as he processes the information. She saved over 200 people in Kabul during the withdrawal. How is that even possible? We lost people that day. Good people. The airport was chaos. If she saved 200, how did nobody hear about it? Because nobody was supposed to hear about it, Chen says quietly. That is the whole point. She operates outside the system, outside recognition, outside the chain of command we understand. Thorne stares at the photograph. He is remembering his own words from 2 days ago. Hey, sweetheart, you lost? HR is on the 3rd floor. The memory makes his skin crawl. He made assumptions based on nothing but appearance. He saw a young woman in civilian clothes and decided she did not belong, did not matter, was not worth his respect. He mocked. Someone who had done more in 5 years than he would accomplish in an entire career. And she never said a word. She simply stood there, let him make a fool of himself, then saved 8 lives while he watched. Royce picks up the intelligence summary, studies it closely. His finger traces the line about clearance levels. It says her clearance is above POTUS. That is not possible. The president is the ultimate classification authority. The president has access to everything. Chen shakes his head slowly. It is possible if she is not technically part of the military chain of command. If she operates under a different authority structure, something parallel to the normal system, something that predates or supersedes presidential authority. What kind of authority structure could possibly supersede the president? Chen does not answer because there is no good answer. They are in territory none of them have training for, looking at evidence of a program that should not exist, reading about someone who has no official identity but wields more operational power than most generals. This is the kind of thing conspiracy theorists talk about. The deep state, shadow government, secret programs that run wars from behind closed doors. Except, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a classified file sitting on a table in the Pentagon, confirmed by a 2-star general who told them to forget what they know. Thorne closes the folder carefully and slides it back to the center of the table. His team looks at him, waiting for guidance, waiting for him to make sense of this, waiting for him to tell them what to do. He is their commanding officer. He is supposed to have answers, but right now, he has nothing but questions. We follow orders. We do not talk about this outside this room. We do not investigate further. We do not ask questions. We saw a logistics consultant observing operations. That is the official record. That is what happened. But his voice lacks conviction. Even as he says the words, he knows he is lying. He cannot let this go. Not because of ego, though that is part of it. Not because he wants to be right, though that would be easier. But because for the first time in his career, he has glimpsed something that operates beyond the rules he has built his life around. And he needs to understand it. He needs to know who she is, how she does what she does, why she chooses to remain invisible. The team files out of the SIF one by one. Thorne remains behind for a moment, staring at the closed folder. Then he takes out his phone, opens the camera, and quickly photographs the intelligence summary and the surveillance photo. He knows this is a violation. He knows his phone should not even be this close to a SCIF. He knows he could face court-martial for what he is doing. He does it anyway. The camera clicks twice, nearly silent. He slips the phone back into his pocket and leaves the room. 5 years earlier. A different room. A different version of Rena Daleth. She is 20 years old, sitting in a campus coffee shop at MIT, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of college life. Students argue about philosophy at the next table, their voices rising in passionate disagreement over Kant's categorical imperative. Someone's laptop plays indie music too loudly, the kind of melancholic electronica that soundtracks late-night study sessions. The espresso machine hisses and grinds, producing drinks that cost too much and contain too much caffeine. The air smells like coffee beans and old books and the particular scent of intellectual ambition. Rena has 3 laptops open in front of her, screens filled with data streams that would mean nothing to most people but tell her a story clearer than words. She is tracking flight manifests out of Istanbul, cross-referencing them against passenger lists and cargo declarations. She is monitoring social media posts from a 6-block radius in the city's old quarter, using translation software to parse Turkish and Arabic. She is checking weather patterns, comparing them against historical traffic data. She is looking at recent changes in local business hours, the kind of small details that most intelligence analysts would dismiss as noise. To anyone watching, it would look like random research, the kind of obsessive deep dive that college students do when they cannot sleep and their minds are racing. But Rena is not researching, she is hunting. 3 days ago, she read a news article about a kidnapped journalist. The article was brief, buried on page 8 of the international section. American freelance journalist taken in Istanbul, whereabouts unknown, Turkish authorities investigating. The article mentioned that the journalist had been taken somewhere in the city, but provided few details beyond that. The official line was that intelligence agencies were working on it, standard procedure, nothing to worry about. But something about the timeline felt wrong to Rena. Something about the location did not match the pattern of previous kidnappings in that region. The journalist was taken on a Tuesday mid-morning from a neighborhood that did not fit the normal profile. Most kidnappings in Istanbul happened in specific areas known for criminal activity. This one happened in a business district. That anomaly stuck in her mind like a splinter. So, she started looking. She found a Twitter post from a cafe owner complaining about a delayed coffee delivery. The post was in Turkish, time-stamped at 9:47 a.m. on the day of the kidnapping, from a cafe 3 blocks from where the journalist was last seen. She found a flight manifest showing a private charter leaving Istanbul at 2:15 p.m. that same day, unusual because that particular charter company normally operated only at night. She found a weather report indicating that a thunderstorm had delayed several flights that afternoon. But somehow this charter left exactly on time, which suggested either incredible luck or someone with enough influence to bypass normal air traffic protocols. She found a grainy photograph on Instagram showing a white van parked in an alley, posted by a tourist who thought the lighting was atmospheric, and added a filter that made it look like a scene from a spy movie. The tourist tagged the location. Rena cross-referenced the location with the cafe, the charter flight timeline, and the weather data. She found security camera footage from a nearby bank, publicly accessible because of a transparency law, showing the same white van leaving the area at 1:53 p.m. Individually, these pieces meant nothing: a delayed coffee delivery, a charter flight, a rainstorm, a white van. Random data points in a city of 15 million people. Together, they told her exactly where the journalist had been taken, how he had been moved, and which flight had carried him out of the country. Her phone buzzes, pulling her out of the flow state she enters when tracking patterns. Unknown number. She almost ignores it. She has learned to be cautious about unknown calls, but something tells her to answer, an instinct she cannot explain. Miss Daleth, my name is Eamon Sorrell. I work for a department of the government you have never heard of. We need to meet. The voice is calm, professional, with the kind of authority that suggests this is not a request. Rena's first instinct is to hang up. Her second instinct is to ask how he got this number. Her third instinct, the one she follows, is to ask when. 2 hours later, she sits in a rental car in a parking garage in Cambridge, waiting. The garage is mostly empty at this hour, just a few cars scattered across 3 levels. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting harsh shadows. The concrete walls amplify every sound. A black sedan pulls up next to her, moving slowly, deliberately. A man in his late 50s steps out, expensive suit, forgettable face, the kind of person you would walk past on the street without a second glance. He is neither handsome nor ugly, neither tall nor short, neither memorable nor invisible. He is exactly average in every way, which Rena recognizes as deliberate. This is a man who has trained himself to disappear in plain sight. He gestures for her to join him. She hesitates for 3 seconds, running through scenarios in her mind. Then she gets out of her car and slides into his passenger seat. The sedan smells like leather and something else, something chemical. She realizes it is the scent of a car that has been professionally cleaned to remove any trace evidence. Eamon Sorrell does not waste time on introductions or pleasantries. He pulls out a tablet and shows her a file. It contains screenshots of her laptop activity for the last 72 hours. Every search, every cross-reference, every connection she made, every website she visited, every database she accessed. Her stomach drops. This is not possible. She uses VPNs. She routes her searches through multiple proxies. She covers her digital tracks. Better than most professional hackers. You identified the location of a high-value kidnapping victim using nothing but open-source intelligence and publicly available data. You did it faster and more accurately than 3 intelligence agencies with billion-dollar budgets and access to classified satellite imagery. This is the 3rd time you have done something like this in the last 6 months. Rena says nothing. Her mind is racing, trying to understand how they found her, how long they have been watching, what they want. Sorrel seems to read her thoughts. His expression does not change, but there is something almost amused in his eyes. We have been monitoring certain online behavior patterns for the last 2 years, looking for people who see connections that others miss. You appeared on our radar 8 months ago when you predicted a stock market crash in Singapore based on shipping container movements and social media posts from dock workers. You were right. The crash happened exactly as you predicted. Then you identified a terrorist cell in Berlin by tracking pastry purchases and taxi routes. German intelligence raided the location you identified and prevented an attack. They still do not know how they got the tip. Then this. The journalist in Istanbul. He swipes to another screen. It shows the journalist, alive, being led out of a building by Turkish police. Timestamp from 6 hours ago. We got him out because you told us where to look. You sent an anonymous email to the State Department with coordinates and a timeline. How did you know? Rena finds her voice. It is smaller than she wants it to be. I saw the pattern. The pieces fit together if you know how to look. You have a gift, Miss Daleth. You see patterns where most people see noise. You understand how information flows, how systems connect, how small details reveal large truths. That is rare. That is valuable. That could save thousands of lives. What do you want from me? We want to give you the tools to do this at scale. We want to point you at problems that matter. We want you to have access to intelligence systems and databases that will let you see patterns across the entire world, instead of just the pieces you can find on public internet. We want to save lives that would otherwise be lost because nobody else will see what you see. Rena feels her heart rate increase. This is the offer she has been waiting for, without knowing it. The chance to actually make a difference instead of just sending anonymous tips that may or may not be followed. But there is always a catch. There is always a cost. And, in exchange, Sorrel's expression remains neutral, but his eyes are serious now. You disappear, completely. No rank, no uniform, no credit. You become a voice on a radio, a call sign, an asset with no name. You will operate outside normal channels, with clearance above almost everyone in government. You will have access to intelligence systems that most people do not know exist. You will coordinate operations, guide missions, prevent disasters. And you will never be thanked, never be recognized, never be known. Rena looks at him. She is 20 years old. She should be thinking about midterms and graduation and what job she wants after college. She should be worried about student loans and career prospects, and whether she wants to go to graduate school. Instead, she is sitting in a car with a man who is offering to make her disappear into the machinery of national security. It should terrify her. It should make her run. But instead, she feels something else: certainty, purpose, the sense that this is what she has been preparing for without knowing it. Every pattern she has found, every connection she has made, every moment of feeling different, of seeing things others missed, it was all leading here. What if I say no? Sorrel's expression does not change, but his eyes are sad now, genuinely sad. Then the journalist we just rescued gets taken again in 3 weeks and dies because we will not know where to look. And 2 months from now, 317 people die in an attack in Atlanta, because nobody will connect the pattern of shipping manifests and social media posts and weather data that you would have seen immediately. And 6 months after that, a chemical weapons facility in Syria goes undetected until it is too late and an entire city suffers. I could keep going. He lets that sit between them, the weight of it, the terrible mathematics of prevention, the lives that will be lost if she says no, weighed against the life she will lose if she says yes. Rena stares through the windshield at the concrete walls of the parking garage. She thinks about the journalist who is alive because of her. She thinks about 317 people in Atlanta who have no idea they are in danger. She thinks about all the patterns she has seen, all the connections she has made, All the time she has known something was wrong, but had no way to act on it. The answer forms in her mind before she consciously makes the decision. It is not really a choice. It never was. What do I have to do? Sorelli's expression softens slightly. The first genuine emotion she has seen from him. Disappear. Present day. Cairo, Egypt. A safe house in the Zamalek district. An upscale neighborhood on an island in the Nile. The building looks like a dozen others on the street. Unremarkable cream-colored stone with wrought iron balconies and shuttered windows. It is the kind of place where wealthy locals keep second apartments they rarely visit, where foreign businessmen stay during extended trips, where nothing interesting ever seems to happen, which makes it perfect for the kind of work being done inside. On the third floor, 8 operators from a joint task force prepare for a mission. They are hunting a financier named Karim Bashir, who has been funneling money to extremist cells across North Africa for the last 3 years. Intelligence suggests he is preparing to move, possibly leaving Egypt entirely. If they lose him now, it could be months or years before he surfaces again. The money trail will go cold. Cells that depend on his funding will find new sources. Opportunities will be lost. The safe house smells like gun oil and sweat and the particular tension that comes before action. Equipment is spread across tables. Tactical vests hang on chairs. Weapons are being checked and rechecked. Maps cover one wall, showing the target's residence, the surrounding streets, potential escape routes. Everyone moves with practiced efficiency, the choreography of professionals who have done this hundreds of times. The team includes members from Delta Force, CIA Special Activities Division, and one SEAL unit that was pulled in at the last minute because of their regional expertise and language skills. Garrick Thorne stands near the window, watching the street 3 floors below. He has been in Cairo for 6 days. The heat is oppressive even at night, the kind of dry heat that sucks moisture from your lungs. The air smells like diesel exhaust and spices and the Nile's muddy water. Car horns create a constant background noise. The call to prayer echoes from mosques across the city 5 times a day. He is tired, tense, ready for this operation to either happen or be scrubbed so they can go home. The door to the safe house opens. A woman walks in carrying a leather portfolio and a thermos. Thorne turns from the window and freezes. Time seems to slow. It is her. The woman from the operations center. The woman from the classified file. The woman who has occupied his thoughts for weeks. She looks exactly the same. Faded canvas jacket over a black turtleneck. Hair pulled back in a simple knot. No insignia, no badge. She moves through the room as if she has every right to be there, which apparently she does. Nobody questions her presence. Nobody asks who she is. She is expected. The mission commander, a CIA officer named Vickers, who has the weathered look of someone who has spent too many years in hostile territories, nods to her. Glad you could make it. Everyone, this is our strategic consultant. She will be providing operational guidance for tonight's action. Thorne cannot stop himself. The words come out sharper than he intends. Sir, why is she here? Every head in the room turns to look at him. Vickers gives him a look that suggests this is not a question he should be asking, that there are protocols being violated by even asking. She is here because she sees things we miss. She has proven instrumental in previous operations. You will follow her guidance. That is not a request, Commander. Thorne wants to argue. He wants to demand answers, to know who she is and why everyone seems to defer to her, despite her complete lack of official standing, despite the fact that she appears to be a civilian contractor at best. But the look Vickers gives him makes it clear that this conversation is over before it begins. He looks at the woman instead, making eye contact for the first time since she entered. She meets his gaze calmly. There is no recognition in her eyes, no acknowledgement that they have encountered each other before, no indication that she remembers him mocking her in front of 70 people. It is as if the operations center never happened, as if she meets so many people in so many places that he is just another face in an endless series of temporary teams. She sets her portfolio on the table and opens it with practiced movements. Inside are printed satellite photographs, hand-annotated maps with notes in precise handwriting, and what appears to be a detailed timeline written on graph paper. She spreads them out methodically, creating a visual representation of intelligence that took her hours to compile. The target is moving his family out of Cairo tonight, within the next 6 hours. He knows we are close. He has received information that suggests his security is compromised. If we do not act in the next 4 hours, we lose him for at least 6 months, possibly longer. He has resources and contacts that will make him nearly impossible to locate once he goes to ground. Vickers frowns, studying the maps. Our intelligence does not indicate imminent movement. We have been monitoring his communications, his residence, his known associates. Nothing suggests he is planning to flee. The woman pulls out her phone and displays an Instagram post. It shows a violin with morning light coming through a window and a handwritten note in Arabic. The image has filters applied, making it look artistic and warm. Her name is Layla Mansour. She teaches music to the target's daughter 3 times a week, always on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 in the afternoon. This was posted 45 minutes ago. She is canceling all her lessons for the next 2 weeks. Family emergency, the note says. Today is Tuesday. She should be teaching right now. Thorne stares at the phone screen. He cannot believe what he is hearing. You are basing a tactical assault on a music teacher's Instagram post? The woman looks at him. Her expression is neutral, but her eyes are sharp, assessing, taking his measure. There is no anger in her gaze, no defensiveness, just a calm certainty that is somehow more intimidating than if she had snapped at him. No, I am basing it on 17 other indicators that all point to the same conclusion. The Instagram post just confirmed the timeline and gave me the final piece I needed. She swipes through her phone, showing image after image. His wife, Noor Bashir, bought 3 plane tickets this morning using a credit card we have been monitoring. One-way tickets to Doha on a flight that leaves at 11 tonight. His driver, a man named Ahmed who has worked for the family for 6 years, requested emergency leave starting tomorrow morning. No explanation given. He has never requested emergency leave before. His security detail changed shifts 6 hours early, which breaks their normal pattern. New guards arrived who we have not seen before, likely contractors brought in specifically for the move. She pulls up a bank transfer record. His business partner in Doha, a man named Khalil Hassan, received a wire transfer this morning for an amount that exactly matches the pattern Bashir uses when preparing to relocate operations. We have seen this pattern twice before. Once when he moved from Libya to Egypt, once when he established a secondary operation in Lebanon. She spread satellite photos across the table. There are 3 vehicles at his residence right now that were not there yesterday. One is a cargo truck. The other 2 are SUVs with reinforced frames, the kind used for secure transport. The cargo truck has been loading items for the last 2 hours. We can see it on thermal imaging. And here is the critical detail. His daughter's school called the residence this morning to ask why she was absent. The family said she was ill, but she was seen yesterday evening at a restaurant with her mother, looking perfectly healthy. They are pulling her out of school without saying goodbye to friends or teachers. That only happens when you are not planning to come back. The room is silent. Vickers studies the maps she has laid out, cross-referencing them with the intelligence his team has gathered. His expression shifts from skepticism to concern. How certain are you of this assessment? 93%. The remaining 7% accounts for the possibility that I am seeing a pattern that does not exist, but based on historical behavior analysis and the convergence of multiple independent indicators, I am confident we have a 4-hour window maximum before he is gone. Vickers nods slowly, processing the information. His years of experience tell him to trust this kind of detailed analysis, especially when it comes from someone the agency clearly values. Then we move in 3 hours. That gives us time to finalize approach routes and confirm positions. He turns to the team. Full tactical load. Rules of engagement are capture if possible, neutralize if necessary. Primary objective is the target alive for interrogation. Secondary objective is his financial records and any electronic devices. Questions? Nobody speaks. The operators begin checking their gear, running through pre-mission protocols with the quiet efficiency of professionals. Weapons are loaded and cleared. Communication systems are tested. Routes are memorized. Everyone knows their role. Thorne watches the woman as she quietly gathers her materials and steps to the side of the room, giving space for the tactical preparations. She does not join the equipment check. She does not participate in the tactical discussion of approach angles and breach points. She simply stands there, watching, her thermos in hand, exactly as she did in the operations center. 2 hours later, Thorn finds her alone on the roof of the safe house. She is sitting on the ledge, looking out over the city. Cairo sprawls in every direction, a chaos of lights and sounds and centuries of history compressed into one impossible urban landscape. The sunset paints the sky in shades of orange and pink, softening the harsh edges of concrete and steel. The call to prayer echoes from a nearby mosque, the ancient words carrying across the modern city. Traffic horns blend into white noise, punctuated by occasional shouts from the street below. The air smells like charcoal smoke from street food vendors and the faint scent of jasmine from a garden somewhere nearby. She does not turn when he approaches, but he can tell she knows he is there. There is a slight tension in her shoulders, a subtle shift in posture that suggests awareness. He stops a few feet away, unsure how to begin. Why do they not just tell people who you are? You would have a lot more respect if people knew what you do. Respect is not why I do this. Then why? She is quiet for a long time. The silence stretches between them, filled with the sounds of the city. When she speaks, her voice is softer than he has heard before, with a vulnerability that surprises him. Because someone has to, and nobody else sees what I see. If I do not do this, people die. It is that simple and that complicated. How do you do it? How do you find patterns in things that seem completely random to everyone else? She turns to look at him. In the dim light from the city below, her face is hard to read. The shadows soften her features. I do not know how to explain it. I have always been able to do it. When I was 8, I could predict when my parents were going to argue based on how my father parked his car in the driveway. If he parked crooked, it meant he was distracted. If he was distracted, it meant work was stressing him. If work was stressing him, he would be short with my mother, and they would fight. In high school, I knew which teachers were going to quit before they told anyone because of small changes in behavior, the way they decorated their classrooms, the way they talked about future lessons. In college, I could map entire social networks just by watching who sat next to whom in the cafeteria, who made eye contact, who avoided whom. Everything is connected if you know how to look. Thorn sits down a few feet away from her, careful to maintain distance. That sounds lonely. It is. The admission surprises him. He expected deflection or silence or some professional response about duty and service. Instead, she has given him something true, something personal. He does not know how to respond. They sit in silence, watching the city transform as night falls. Lights come on in windows. Street vendors light their grills. The traffic noise shifts in character as the day workers go home and the night workers emerge. After a while, she speaks again. I saw you in the operations center. I heard what you said. Thorn feels his face flush with shame. I know. I am sorry. I made assumptions. I was wrong. You were not wrong to question my presence. Skepticism is healthy in intelligence work. But you made those questions into jokes instead of asking them seriously. That is the part that bothers me. Not that you doubted me, but that you made my presence into entertainment. You are right. There is no excuse for that. No, there is not. She stands up and walks toward the stairs. We should go. Mission brief in 20 minutes. Vickers wants to review the approach one more time. She disappears down the stairwell. Thorn remains on the roof for another moment, thinking about what she said. Everything is connected if you know how to look. He wonders what it must be like to see the world that way, to carry that much information in your head, to understand patterns that nobody else can perceive. He wonders if she ever wishes she could turn it off, could experience the world the way normal people do, without seeing the connections and implications of every small detail. The operation goes exactly as she predicted. They breach Karim Bashir's residence at 0237 local time. The thermal imaging she analyzed was correct. The target is in the process of loading documents into a car in the underground garage. His wife and daughter left an hour earlier in one of the SUVs, driven to the airport by the new security contractors. The tactical team secures Bashir without firing a shot. He is so shocked by their sudden appearance that he does not even reach for the weapon visible on a nearby table. They recover financial records that will dismantle funding networks across 3 countries. Hard drives containing communications with cell leaders. Encrypted phones that intelligence analysts will spend months breaking into. 0 casualties, 0 complications. A perfect operation that will be written up as a textbook example of how to execute a high-value target capture in an urban environment. In the aftermath, as the team secures the site and processes the intelligence haul, Thorne watches the woman. She stands in the corner of Bashir's study, photographing documents with her phone. Her movements are quick, efficient, professional. She knows exactly what she is looking for, which papers matter and which are irrelevant. Nobody questions her presence. Nobody asks what she is doing. She operates in a space beyond the normal chain of command, answering to authorities that exist only in classified files and secure communications. Later, back at the safe house, Thorne breaks protocol. He knows he should not do this. He knows it violates the direct order General Ibarra gave him, but he cannot stop himself. He uses his security clearance to run a search on Cipher Protocol through the classified database, accessing systems that are supposed to be restricted to intelligence analysts and senior officers. The system immediately flags his search as unauthorized and logs it. A red warning appears on his screen. Unauthorized access attempt. Query logged. Security. Alert generated. Within 10 minutes, his phone rings. He looks at the caller ID, Pentagon. He considers not answering. Then he accepts the call. It is General Ibarra. His voice is tired, but not angry. Not yet. Commander Thorne, we talked about this. Sir, I just want to understand. No, you want answers to questions that will only create more questions. Trust me when I tell you that some things work better when they stay in shadow. I have been doing this for 30 years. I have seen programs like this come and go. The ones that work are the ones that stay hidden. She saved our lives tonight. She has saved thousands of lives according to that file you showed me. Why does she have to stay hidden? Why can she not get the recognition she deserves? Ibarra's voice is quiet now, almost sad. Because the moment people know who she is, they stop listening to what she says. They see a young woman without rank or uniform or official position. They make assumptions, they doubt, they question. Her power comes from her invisibility. Take that away, and she becomes just another voice in a very crowded room. A voice that people will ignore because she does not look like what they think power should look like. That is not fair. Fair has nothing to do with it. This is about what works, and she works because nobody knows her. The moment she becomes visible, she becomes vulnerable. She becomes a target. She becomes political, and she stops being able to do the work that saves lives. Now delete whatever searches you ran and do not do it again. That is a direct order. The line goes dead. Thorne sits in the dark room, phone in hand, anger and frustration churning in his chest. He thinks about her sitting on the roof, admitting that her life is lonely. He thinks about the 2,300 lives she has saved, none of whom will ever know her name. He thinks about the military she serves, the country she protects, all of it built on a foundation of people like her who do the work without recognition or thanks. He opens his laptop and finds the search history from his earlier query. His finger hovers over the delete key. He should follow orders. He should erase the evidence of his curiosity and move on. But he cannot bring himself to do it. Instead, he navigates to a different folder, one that is not monitored by military systems, and copies the Cipher Protocol file he downloaded earlier. He saves it in an encrypted partition with a password only he knows. He tells himself it is insurance. He tells himself that someday people will need to know what she did. He tells himself he is preserving history. But really, he just cannot let her disappear completely. Cannot accept that someone who has done so much will leave no trace. It feels wrong, unjust, like a violation of the natural order that says good deeds should be rewarded and heroes should be remembered. He deletes the search history and closes the laptop. Outside his window, Cairo continues its endless rhythm. The city never really sleeps. There are always people moving, working, living. Somewhere in this city, Rena Daleth is probably already working on the next pattern, the next connection, the next crisis that nobody else will see coming. And when she finds it, she will save more lives. And nobody will thank her. And she will disappear back into the shadows like she was never there. 3 days after the Cairo operation, Thorne receives new orders. The message comes through encrypted military channels at 2:30, waking him from restless sleep. Report to White House Situation Room, 0600 hours. All available assets required. National security emergency. Code classification, Pinnacle. He flies back to Washington on a military transport, arriving at EO 4:30. He has not slept in 26 hours. His uniform is wrinkled from the flight. His eyes feel like sandpaper. He stops at his apartment only long enough to shower and change into a fresh uniform, then drives to the White House through empty pre-dawn streets. Security is tighter than he has ever seen it. There are checkpoints within checkpoints, armed guards at intervals that suggest genuine threat rather than standard protocol. His credentials are verified 3 times by different personnel using different systems. When he finally reaches the Situation Room, he understands why. The room is filled with the most senior military and intelligence leadership in the country. Joint Chiefs of Staff sit in their designated seats. Director of National Intelligence stands near a bank of screens. Secretary of Defense is on a secure phone call in the corner. National Security Advisor is reviewing documents with her staff. 4-star generals and admirals, whose names Thorne knows from briefings and news reports, fill the chairs around the main table. He is the lowest-ranking person in the room by at least 2 grades, possibly more. He finds a seat along the wall, in the space reserved for support staff and junior officers. Nobody acknowledges him. Everyone is focused on the screens at the front of the room, which show a crisis unfolding in real time. A coup attempt in a country that Thorne recognizes after a moment as strategically critical to American interests in the Pacific. Military forces are moving through streets. Government buildings are under siege. The audio feed carries the sound of gunfire and shouting. Smoke rises from multiple locations across the capital city. The debate has already started. Half the room wants immediate military intervention. Send in special forces. Establish air superiority. Support the legitimate government. The other half wants sanctions and diplomatic pressure. Avoid direct involvement. Let regional allies handle it. Work through the UN. Voices rise. Arguments overlap. Everyone has an opinion backed by intelligence reports and strategic assessments. Nobody has consensus. The room is divided along lines of risk tolerance and strategic philosophy. Thorne watches, feeling completely out of place, wondering why he was summoned here. He has no expertise in this region. He has no strategic insights to offer. He is a tactical operator, not a policymaker. Then he sees her. Rena stands in the corner of the room, so still and quiet that he missed her at first. She is wearing the same canvas jacket, holding the same thermos. She looks impossibly small in a room full of generals and cabinet members. Nobody is paying attention to her. She is invisible again, just another body in an overcrowded space. Someone who might be an aide or an analyst or a staffer, nobody remembers inviting. The door opens. Everyone rises in a coordinated movement that speaks to years of military protocol. The president enters, and Thorne feels the energy in the room shift dramatically. The president looks exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tie slightly loose, jacket unbuttoned. He has the appearance of a man who has not slept in days and knows he will not sleep for days more. The weight of the office is visible in the way he carries himself. He surveys the room. The arguments stop mid-sentence. Everyone waits for him to speak, to provide direction, to make the decision that only he can make. I have been in this office for 6 years. I have sat through 1,000 briefings exactly like this one. Smart people with different opinions. Everyone certain they are right. Everyone has intelligence to support their position. But right now, I do not need 12 different perspectives. I do not need a debate. I need one right answer. I need to know what is actually happening and what we should actually do about it. His eyes move across the faces in front of him. Senior advisors, military leadership, intelligence chiefs, people who have spent decades in service to their country. Then his gaze settles on the corner where Rena stands. What does Cypher say? Have you ever realized too late that the most important person was the one you overlooked? If you recognize the power of quiet competence, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to see what happens when the invisible finally steps into the light where everyone must see her. The room goes silent, the kind of silence that feels physical, like the air itself has thickened. Confusion spreads across faces like ripples in still water. Half the people in the Situation Room do not know who Cypher is. They have never heard the name. They have clearances that grant them access to some of the most sensitive intelligence in the world. But this program exists in a space beyond their reach. They look around, searching for the source of this mysterious authority. wondering who the president is addressing. National Security Advisor Rebecca Chen leans towards Secretary of Defense William Park and whispers something. Park shakes his head, equally confused. Admiral Price, the highest-ranking naval officer in the room, looks toward the intelligence chiefs, thinking perhaps this is a CIA asset. The Director of National Intelligence stares at the president with an expression that suggests even she is uncertain. Every head turns, searching. Their eyes sweep across the room, passing over the junior officers along the wall, the aides holding tablets, the communication specialists monitoring secure channels. Then, slowly, systematically, every gaze lands on the same person, the young woman in the corner, the one in the faded canvas jacket, the one nobody noticed when they entered, the one who has been standing perfectly still for the last 30 minutes, holding a thermos, watching the screens with an intensity that suggests complete understanding. Rena steps forward, not quickly, not dramatically, just a quiet movement from shadow into light. Her footsteps on the carpeted floor are barely audible. She moves past chairs filled with four-star generals. She walks by advisors who have spent their entire careers climbing to positions of power. She stops 3 feet from the main table, where the president and his closest advisors stand over maps and intelligence reports. Thorne watches from his position along the wall. His heart is pounding. This is the moment. This is when the invisible becomes visible, when the ghost steps fully into the world where everyone can see her. He feels like he is watching something historic, something that will define careers and change understanding. He also feels afraid for her, though he cannot articulate why. Rena sets her portfolio on the edge of the table. She opens it with the same methodical movements Thorne has seen before. She spreads satellite photographs, annotated maps, and handwritten timelines across the polished surface. Her hands are steady. Her voice, when she speaks, is calm and clear. "Mr. President, with respect, you are asking the wrong question." The room tenses. Nobody speaks to the president this way. Even senior advisors phrase their disagreements carefully, diplomatically. But Rena's tone is not disrespectful. It is precise. It is the voice of someone correcting a student who has misunderstood the assignment. This is not about intervention. The coup you are watching is a distraction. Political theater designed to pull your attention, while the real operation happens 60 miles offshore. She pulls out a tablet and projects an image onto the main screens. 3 ships appear, photographed from satellite. They look like standard commercial fishing vessels. Rusty hulls. Nets visible on deck. Nothing remarkable. These 3 vessels have been anchored in international waters off the coast for 6 days. They are registered as Chinese fishing trawlers, but they have not caught a single fish. Their nets have not been deployed once. They are maintaining position with an accuracy that requires sophisticated GPS systems. Systems that fishing vessels do not typically have. She swipes to the next image. This one shows thermal signatures overlaid on the ships. These thermal readings are inconsistent with fishing operations. The heat signature suggests diesel generators running at capacity to power equipment that is not visible on deck. Based on the distribution and intensity, I assess these are communications arrays and possibly weapon systems concealed below deck. General Corva, the Air Force Chief of Staff, leans forward. This is speculation based on thermal imaging. It could be refrigeration units for fish storage. Rena meets his gaze. Her expression does not change. She pulls up another document. Shipping manifests acquired through customs databases. These vessels departed from a naval shipyard in Qingdao 3 months ago. The manifests list cargo as fishing equipment, but the total weight recorded at departure exceeds the weight of the actual fishing equipment by 47 tons. That discrepancy was noted by port authorities, but not investigated. She continues before anyone can interrupt. Additionally, all 3 vessels are owned by a shell corporation that shares board members with a Chinese state military contractor. The crews include 5 individuals who have military backgrounds in naval operations, and the timing is not coincidental. These vessels arrived in their current positions exactly 4 days before the coup attempt began. Secretary of Defense Park studies the images. What is your assessment of their objective? The deep-water port at Bandar Sul. It is the only port in the region capable of accommodating large military vessels. It provides strategic access to shipping lanes that carry 40% of global commerce. If China controls that port, they effectively control trade routes throughout the entire region. How does the coup connect to the port? Rena pulls up a new set of images showing the port facility. The current government has been negotiating with American companies to expand this port and establish a permanent naval logistics facility. That deal was supposed to be signed next week. If the coup succeeds, the new government will be sympathetic to Chinese interests. But that process takes time, months of negotiations. China does not want to wait. They want the port now. She zooms in on the satellite image. During the chaos of the coup, while your attention is focused on the capital city, Chinese special forces will deploy from these vessels and seize the port facility. They will present it as a peacekeeping operation, protecting critical infrastructure during political instability. By the time the coup either succeeds or fails, China will have physical control of the port, and removing them after that becomes exponentially more difficult without direct military confrontation. The room is absolutely silent. Every person is processing what they have just heard. Rena continues, her voice steady. The evidence supporting this assessment includes the following. First, a dock worker union strike at Bandar Sul that was scheduled to last 2 weeks was called off yesterday with no explanation. The union leadership received payments from an untraceable source totaling $600,000. Second, satellite imagery shows increased activity at the Chinese naval base in Djibouti, with 3 amphibious assault ships preparing for deployment. Third, intercepted communications between Chinese military officials reference an operation called Tidebreak, scheduled for the same 48-hour window as the coup. She pulls up a final document. And most critically, the leader of the coup, General Musa, has a son studying at a university in Shanghai. That son was quietly relocated to Beijing 3 days ago, under diplomatic protection. That only happens when someone wants leverage to ensure cooperation. Admiral Price speaks, his voice thoughtful. If your assessment is correct, what is the recommended response? You do not invade. You do not impose immediate sanctions. Both of those responses play into the narrative China wants. American aggression, American interference in regional affairs. Instead, you quietly move the 7th Fleet into a support position 30 miles offshore, close enough to respond to any crisis, close enough to be visible on radar and satellite. You leak the deployment to Chinese intelligence through established back channels. Make sure they know you see them. Make sure they understand that any move toward the port will be interpreted as an act of aggression requiring immediate response. She pauses, then continues. Simultaneously, you have the ambassador make a private call to the Chinese foreign minister. No threats, no accusations. Just a friendly conversation expressing concern about instability in the region and mentioning that American naval assets will be in the area to ensure freedom of navigation. The subtext will be clear. We know what you are planning. We are ready. Do not test us. What happens to the coup? Without Chinese support, it collapses within 72 hours. General Musa does not have enough military backing to sustain operations once he realizes he is on his own. The legitimate government retains control, the port deal proceeds as planned, and China backs down without losing face because the operation never officially happened. The president has been listening without interruption. Now he turns to his advisors. Opinions? Rebecca Chen, the National Security Advisor, nods slowly. The analysis is sound. If even half of what she is saying is accurate, this is the correct play. Low risk, high reward. We demonstrate strength without committing to conflict. Secretary Park agrees. Moving the 7th Fleet can be justified as routine operations. We do it all the time, but the timing and positioning will send the message. Admiral Price looks at Rena with something like respect. How confident are you in this assessment? 87%. The remaining 13% accounts for the possibility that I am wrong about Chinese intentions, or that the coup is genuine rather than coordinated. But every indicator I have tracked for the past 9 days points to this conclusion. The president makes his decision without hesitation. Do it. Move the fleet, make the call, and I want updates every 2 hours until this resolves. He turns to Rena. Thank you, Miss Daleth. It is the first time anyone in that room has heard her real name. The first time her identity has been spoken aloud in an official setting. The words hang in the air like a revelation. Thorne sees several people glance at each other, trying to process what they have just witnessed. A young woman with no visible rank, no official position, no place in the formal hierarchy, has just advised the President of the United States on a matter of war and peace. And he listened, and he took her advice without question. The meeting breaks. Advisors move to implement the President's orders. Communication specialists begin drafting secure messages. Military liaisons start coordinating fleet movements. The room transforms from debate chamber to operations center in a matter of minutes. Rena gathers her materials quietly and steps back toward the corner. She is preparing to disappear again, to fade back into invisibility now that her work is done. The President stops her with a gesture. "Miss Dallas, a moment, please." She turns, waits. The President walks over to her, away from the main group. His voice is low enough that only those nearby can hear. "How long have you been doing this?" 5 years, sir. And nobody knows who you are. That is how the program is designed, sir. He studies her face. You have probably saved more lives than anyone in this room, prevented more disasters, averted more wars, and you will never receive recognition for any of it. Recognition is not why I do this. The President nods slowly. I know, but you deserve it anyway. He extends his hand. She hesitates for a fraction of a second, then shakes it. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service. He walks away to rejoin his advisors. Rena stands there for a moment, hand still slightly raised from the handshake, processing what just happened. Then she picks up her portfolio and her thermos and turns toward the exit. Thorn moves to intercept her in the hallway outside the Situation Room. The corridor is quieter here, away from the controlled chaos of the operations center. Overhead, lights cast harsh fluorescent illumination. The carpet absorbs sound, creating a pocket of relative silence. That was remarkable. She looks at him. Her expression is tired. That was necessary. You just prevented a war. You know that, right? If the Chinese had taken that port, if we had tried to remove them, it would have escalated. People would have died. Maybe. Or maybe I am wrong, and the coup is exactly what it appears to be, and I just convinced the President to deploy military assets based on pattern recognition and circumstantial evidence. You are not wrong. I have watched you work now. You see things that nobody else sees. You are always right. She shakes her head. I am not always right. I am just right often. Enough that people keep listening, but every time I give advice, I know there is a chance I am wrong. A chance that my pattern recognition is seeing connections that do not exist. That weight never goes away. How do you live with that? I do not have a choice. This is what I am. This is what I can do. So I do it. They stand in silence for a moment. Then Thorn speaks quietly. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the half-hearted thing I said in Cairo. What I said in the operations center was wrong. It was cruel. It came from arrogance and assumptions and everything that is wrong with how people judge each other based on appearance instead of capability. She meets his eyes. Apology accepted. That is it? Just accepted? What else would you like me to say? You were wrong. You know you were wrong. You apologized. I accept. We move forward. You are more forgiving than I would be in your position. A small smile crosses her face. The first genuine smile Thorn has seen from her. I do not have the energy to hold grudges. I have too much else to think about. She starts to walk away. Thorn calls after her. Will I see you again? She pauses, looks back. Probably. You just will not know it. She disappears around the corner. Thorn stands alone in the hallway, listening to the faint sounds of activity from the Situation Room behind him. He thinks about what she said. I do not have the energy to hold grudges. He wonders what it must take to operate at her level, to carry that much responsibility, to make decisions that affect thousands or millions of lives, all while remaining completely anonymous. 2 weeks later, the coup in the Pacific nation collapses exactly as Rena predicted. General Musa surrenders to government forces after realizing his Chinese support has evaporated. The 3 fishing vessels leave their positions and return to Chinese waters. The port deal is signed with American companies. Not a single shot is fired between American and Chinese forces. The crisis resolves so smoothly that most media outlets barely cover it. A minor political disturbance in a region most Americans cannot find on a map. In a classified briefing room at the Pentagon, General Ibarra addresses a small group of senior military and intelligence leadership. Director Sorrell is there, Admiral Price, several others whose names and titles are not recorded in any official document. They are discussing the future of Cipher Protocol. Ibarra stands at the head of the table. Cipher Protocol has now been active for 5 years. 43 successful operations. Over 2,300 confirmed lives saved. 0 operational failures. The program has exceeded every expectation we had when we initiated it. He pauses, letting that sink in. But the events of the past month have exposed a vulnerability. Too many people now know that Cipher exists. The president knows. His senior staff knows. Multiple 4-star officers have worked directly with the asset. Maintaining operational security is becoming increasingly difficult. Director Sorrell speaks, his voice measured. You are proposing we shut down the program. No, I am proposing we acknowledge reality. We cannot keep her completely invisible anymore. Too many people have seen her, worked with her, relied on her judgment. We need to bring her in from the cold, not fully, not publicly, but within the senior leadership structure. Give her an official position, limited recognition within classified channels. Admiral Price shakes his head. The moment we do that, she loses effectiveness. Right now, people listen to her because her track record speaks for itself. She has no rank to prejudice their judgment, no institutional baggage. She is just a voice that is always right. You give her an official position, and suddenly she is just another analyst. People will start questioning her, doubting her, pushing back based on politics rather than evidence. Sorrell agrees. The Admiral is correct. Her power comes from her invisibility. The mystery. The fact that nobody quite understands who she is or how she knows what she knows. That creates a psychological effect. People listen because they cannot dismiss her using normal bureaucratic reasoning. Then, what do you propose? We cannot maintain the current structure indefinitely. We expand it. We recruit more assets like her. Create a network of invisible advisors operating at the highest levels. Multiple ciphers spread across different regions and specialties. That way, if one becomes exposed, the others remain effective. And we formalize the protocol for how they interact with decision makers. Ibarra considers this. How many candidates have we identified with her specific skill set? Sorrell pulls out a tablet. In the last 5 years, we have screened over 4,000 individuals. We have identified 12 with pattern recognition abilities approaching her level. 3 are currently in training. The challenge is not finding people who can see patterns. The challenge is finding people who can see patterns and handle the psychological isolation of the role. What is her status now? Is she aware we are having this conversation? Sorrell smiles slightly. She predicted we would have this conversation 2 weeks ago. She sent me a memo outlining 3 possible approaches for program expansion, including the multi-asset model I just described. She wrote it before the Situation Room meeting. Of course she did, Admiral Price says, because she sees everything. Not everything, Sorrell corrects. But enough. The meeting continues, but the decision has already been made. Cipher Protocol will continue. It will expand. And Rena Daleth will remain in the shadows, doing the work that saves lives while the world moves on, never knowing her name. 3 weeks after the Situation Room meeting, Thorne returns to USS Stratcom for a routine operations briefing. It is late afternoon. The operations center hums with its usual controlled energy. Fewer people than during active missions, but still plenty of personnel monitoring global situations, tracking assets, coordinating with field units. The massive screens display the familiar array of intelligence feeds. Everything is normal, routine. Then he sees her walk in. Rena enters through the main doors, carrying her portfolio and thermos. She looks exactly the same. Canvas jacket, black turtleneck, hair pulled back. She moves toward the observation deck without speaking to anyone. A few people glance at her, then return to their work. Nobody questions her presence. Nobody asks who she is. She has become a familiar ghost, recognized without being known. Thorne stands near the communications station. He watches her climb the stairs to the observation deck and take up the same position she occupied months ago, the same spot where he mocked her, the same spot where she stood silently and saved 8 lives. He feels a complicated mix of emotions: respect, admiration, guilt, curiosity. He is about to walk over when something changes. A distant rumble carries through the facility. Deep, mechanical, the sound of heavy blast doors opening. Everyone in the operations center pauses. That particular sound means only one thing. Very senior leadership is arriving. The blast doors at the far end of the operations center, the ones that connect to the restricted command corridors, are opening. Thorne has never actually seen those doors open. He has been in this facility dozens of times for briefings and mission coordination, but those specific doors remain closed during normal operations. They only open for flag rank officers and above, and usually only one at a time. The doors slide fully open. 4 figures enter the operations center in precise formation. They move with the synchronized timing that comes from years of military protocol. 4 of the highest-ranking officers in the United States military walking together, entering a routine operations center in the middle of a normal afternoon. General Victor Ibarra, Army, 2 stars. Admiral Marcus Price, Navy, 4 stars. Commander of the Pacific Fleet, General Helena Corva, Air Force, 4 stars. Chief of Staff, Director Eamon Sorrell, Office of Strategic Operations, civilian authority equivalent to 5-star general rank. The entire operations center snaps to attention instantly. 72 personnel rise from their stations in a single coordinated movement. Conversations stop mid-word. Equipment continues its quiet electronic humming, but all human sound ceases. This is not a planned visit. There are no briefings scheduled, no inspections announced. This is unprecedented. Thorne stands at attention with everyone else, mind racing. Why are they here? What situation requires 4 flag rank officers to appear together in an operations center? Has something catastrophic happened? Is there a crisis he is not aware of? The 4 officers walk past the rows of workstations, past the colonels and lieutenant colonels, who represent decades of combined service, past the majors and captains who run the daily operations, past the senior enlisted personnel who keep the systems functioning. They acknowledge no one. Their eyes are fixed forward with military precision. They walk directly toward the observation deck, toward the young woman standing there in her civilian jacket, holding her thermos, watching them approach with calm eyes. They stop in front of her. Perfect alignment. Military bearing so precise it could be used in a training manual. 4 simultaneous salutes. Crisp. Exact. Held with absolute respect. The entire operations center freezes. This is not happening. This cannot be happening. Salutes are rendered to superior officers, to flag ranks, to the chain of command. Not to civilians, not to contractors, not to young women in canvas jackets who carry thermoses and seem to exist outside the normal structure of military authority. But it is happening. Rena returns the salute. A single motion, perfectly executed despite her civilian clothes. She holds it for exactly the correct duration, then lowers her hand with practiced precision. Someone taught her how to salute properly. Someone trained her in military protocol, even though she wears no uniform. Admiral Price speaks, his voice carrying clearly across the silent operations center. "Ma'am, Operation Tidebreak is complete. All objectives achieved. Chinese vessels have withdrawn from the region. Port facility remains under Allied control. 0 casualties. 0 international incidents. Your assessment was accurate to within 3% of predicted outcomes." General Corva continues. "Strategic position in the Pacific has been preserved. Regional allies have increased confidence in American commitment. Chinese military planning has been disrupted. Long-term effects will be significant." General Ibarra adds his report. Intelligence gathered during the operation has identified funding networks across 7 countries. Follow-up operations are already in progress. Estimated impact includes the disruption of activities that would have threatened American interests for the next decade. Director Sorrell speaks last. "On behalf of the intelligence community and the operations personnel whose lives you have saved through your analysis and guidance, we thank you for your service to this nation." The 4 officers hold their salutes for 1 beat longer than regulation requires, an extra moment of respect. Then they lower their hands in perfect synchronization. Rena's voice is quiet but clear. "Thank you, sirs. The The pleasure is mine. The four officers turn as one and march back toward the blast doors. The doors slide open. They exit. The doors close with a heavy metallic sound that echoes through the operations center. For 5 seconds, nobody moves. Nobody breathes. The entire facility is suspended in shock. Then slowly people begin to lower themselves back into their seats. Conversations restart in hushed whispers. Equipment checks resume, but everything has changed. Everyone in that room now knows what Thorn learned weeks ago. The quiet woman on the observation deck is not a contractor, not a consultant, not someone's assistant who wandered into the wrong briefing. She is something else entirely. Thorn watches as the junior officers and analysts glance toward the observation deck, their expressions a mix of confusion and dawning realization. He sees the exact moment when understanding hits them, when they connect the dots between the woman they barely noticed and the salute they just witnessed. He sees shame flash across some faces, curiosity across others, respect across most. A young analyst named Peterson sits at a workstation near Thorn. He turns to his supervisor, voice barely above a whisper. What just happened? His supervisor, Chief Warrant Officer Maloney, stares at the observation deck. That was a demonstration. A message to everyone in this room that we have been operating with incomplete information about who holds real authority in our structure. But who is she? Maloney shakes his head slowly. Someone we should have respected from the beginning. Across the room, Colonel Brennick, the operations commander who tried to thank Rena months ago, stands with his arms crossed. He is watching the observation deck with an expression of satisfaction. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. He understood that the woman in civilian clothes was not someone to be dismissed or mocked. And now everyone else understands too. Thorn looks back at the observation deck. Rena has not moved. She stands in the same position, watching the same screens, doing the same work she was doing before 4 generals saluted her. The display of respect has not changed her, has not made her carry herself differently or act with more authority. She is exactly who she was before. The only thing that changed is that now everyone can see her clearly. The operations center gradually returns to normal function. The shock fades into the background as the immediate work demands attention. But the story will spread. By tomorrow, every person at USS Stratcom will know what happened. By next week, the story will reach other facilities. Within a month, it will be part of the unofficial lore of military intelligence. The woman who received salutes from 4 generals while wearing a canvas jacket. But her name will not be part of that story. Neither will her face. Those details will be classified, redacted, removed from any official account. She will become legend rather than person. Another ghost story told in secure facilities. Another reminder that power does not always wear the uniform people expect. That evening, Thorn finds Rena on the roof of the parking structure adjacent to the USS Stratcom facility. The sun is setting over the Nebraska plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that seem impossible for a landscape so flat and practical. The air has cooled from the day's heat. A breeze carries the smell of grass and distant rain. She sits on the concrete ledge, legs dangling over the edge, thermos beside her. She does not seem surprised when he appears. You knew they were going to do that. The salute. She nods. Director Sorrell informed me 3 days ago. He wanted my permission. Did you give it? Eventually? After I argued against it for 2 hours. Why did you argue against it? Because now everyone knows, or at least everyone knows that I am someone who matters. That makes the work harder. People will treat me differently. They will hesitate before questioning my analysis because they saw 4 generals salute me. That is dangerous. I need people to question me. I need skepticism. It keeps me sharp. It prevents mistakes. Thorn sits down a few feet away from her. Maybe. Or maybe it prevents what happened when I mocked you. Maybe it makes people treat you with the respect you deserve from the start. I do not need respect. I need to be effective. You can be both. She turns to look at him. Can I? Every time someone knows who I am, it changes how they interact with me. They become careful, deferential. They stop saying what they really think because they are worried about contradicting someone with high-level clearance. That kills the collaborative process that produces the best intelligence. So, what happens now? I keep doing the work. I stay in the shadows as much as possible. And I hope that the visibility today does not compromise my effectiveness tomorrow. They sit in silence, watching the sunset. After a while, Thorn speaks again. "Can I ask you something personal?" She shrugs. "You can ask. Are you happy? Doing this? Living like this?" She considers the question seriously. "I am not unhappy. I have purpose. I save lives. I prevent disasters. That matters more than happiness. That is not really an answer. No, it is not." She is quiet for another moment. "I miss things sometimes. Normal things. Friends, relationships. A life that exists outside of classified facilities and encrypted communications. But those things were never really available to me. Even before this program, I saw the world differently than other people. I was always alone in some fundamental way. At least now, the isolation serves a purpose. That sounds lonely. It is. But lonely with purpose is better than lonely without it. Thorn does not know how to respond to that. They watch the sun sink below the horizon, the last light fading from the sky. Stars begin to appear, faint at first, then brighter as true darkness falls. Finally, Rena stands. She picks up her thermos and portfolio. "I should go. I have another situation to analyze. Possible emerging pattern in Southeast Asia that needs attention." "Of course you do. Do you ever rest?" "Sometimes." "When the world cooperates." She starts toward the stairwell, then pauses. "Commander Thorn?" "Yes?" "Thank you. For apologizing, for understanding, for seeing past the surface to what actually matters. Not everyone does." She disappears down the stairs. Thorn remains on the roof, alone with the darkening sky and the distant lights of the facility below. He thinks about her words. Lonely with purpose is better than lonely without it. He thinks about the weight she carries, the responsibility she bears, the recognition she will never receive. He thinks about the thousands of people who are alive because of her, who will never know her name, who will never understand how close they came to dying before someone they never met saved them. 6 months later, in a different facility, in a different country, another crisis unfolds. Thorn is not there. He is on a training exercise in Germany, far from whatever emergency has emerged, but he hears about it later through classified briefings and secure communications. A situation in Eastern Europe, political tensions escalating toward military conflict, intelligence agencies divided on the correct response, senior leadership unable to reach consensus, and in the middle of all the chaos and uncertainty, a quiet voice on a secure channel providing analysis that cuts through the noise and identifies the real issue beneath the surface drama. Cypher, the voice that saves lives, the mind that sees patterns, the woman who exists in the space between shadow and light, and somewhere, in a secure facility that will never appear on any map, Rena Daleth stands on an observation deck, watching screens, drinking from her thermos, doing the work that needs to be done. No uniform, no rank, no recognition, just competence and dedication, and the quiet certainty that comes from knowing your purpose. She saves 200 lives that day. By the following week, the number is forgotten. By the following month, the crisis is resolved and people move on to the next emergency. By the following year, nobody remembers how close they came to catastrophe. Nobody except the people in the shadows, the ones who see the patterns, the ones who do the work, the ones who operate in the space where power does not need to announce itself because it is too busy saving the world. Years pass. Cypher protocol expands. 3 more assets are recruited and trained. They operate across different regions, different specialties, different types of intelligence. None of them reach Rena's level of effectiveness, but they are good enough. They save lives. They prevent disasters. They operate in the shadows. Rena continues her work, invisible to most, visible only to those who need to know. She prevents conflicts. She identifies threats. She sees what others miss. The number of lives saved climbs into the tens of thousands. Maybe more. The count becomes impossible to maintain because how do you count lives that were never threatened because a war never started or an attack never happened? And through it all, she remains alone, lonely with purpose, drinking from her thermos, carrying her portfolio, standing on observation decks in facilities around the world, watching screens, seeing patterns, doing the work. Some people spend their lives demanding to be seen, building reputations, collecting awards, climbing ladders of recognition and status. They measure their worth in titles and positions and public acknowledgement. Others spend their lives making sure you never have to see what they see. They work in darkness so others can live in light. They carry burdens that would crush most people and do it without complaint. They save thousands while remaining unknown to millions. They do not ask for recognition. They do not need medals. They do not want parades or ceremonies or public thanks. They just do the work. In silence, in shadows, with competence and dedication and the understanding that real power does not need to announce itself. The world keeps turning because of them. Children grow up safe because of decisions made in classified facilities by people whose names will never appear in history books. Families stay together because conflicts are prevented by analysts who see patterns in data that look random to everyone else. Cities remain standing because threats are neutralized before most people know they existed. And in 1,000 small moments across 1,000 days, Rena Daleth stands watch, the invisible guardian, the pattern seer, the voice that saves lives. She drinks her coffee. She studies her screens. She finds the connections. She prevents the disasters. She does it alone. She does it quietly. She does it without recognition. And she does it again tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. Because someone has to. Because nobody else sees what she sees. Because lonely with purpose is better than lonely without it. The sun sets, the sun rises, the world continues its endless rhythm, and in the spaces between light and shadow, the invisible ones do their work, unsung, unknown, unforgotten by those who know enough to remember. In the end, that is enough. It has to be, because the work is what matters, the lives saved, the disasters prevented, the quiet dignity of service without recognition. That is the real power. That is the real strength. That is what changes the world while remaining invisible to it. Have you ever known someone who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, never asking for credit, just doing what needed to be done? Someone whose contribution was invisible until the moment you finally saw them clearly? Share this story with someone who needs to remember that true power is quiet, that real strength serves without seeking recognition, and that the most important people are often the ones we overlook. If these stories resonate with you, subscribe to hear more about the invisible ones who shape our world from the shadows.